Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with Ron Placone and Steph Zamorano, the miserable liberal.
Howdy, howdy.
Hello.
And we are talking about the false equivalencies made by the media. Okay, so Chuck Todd is the worst, one of the worst at that. In fact, he even knows it. Here he is. He's going to compare Steve Bannon and Bernie Sanders, but he knows it's already BS. But he's going to do it anyway. You think I'm kidding? Listen.
That is the bigger story brewing here on both sides. Cue the both siderisms. We know you love to do that on Twitter.
So he's in the middle. He's about to make a false equivalency and say both sides are the same on some stupid topic. He already knows that it's wrong, and he's going to do it. We know you love to do that. By mentioning it, that makes it okay for you to do it? Or you're trying to dismiss that that's what you're doing? Watch, this is exactly what he's going to do. He knows the criticism of what he's doing, and he's going to do it anyway. Watch this. I'll play it all the way through.
Leaders learned anything else in the last few weeks, it's that there's a major battle in 2018 that could purge each party of its more moderate governing wing, or at least what's left of that moderate governing wing. Right now, you're seeing signs of a purge on the right.
You are attacking on many fronts people who you need to help you to get things done.
They're not going to help you unless they're put on notice. They're going to be held accountable if they do not support the President of the United States.
You go into war with them.
Absolutely.
It isn't just on the right. There are forces on the Democratic side attacking the moderate and governing wings of their own party as well.
The current model and the current strategy of the Democratic Party is an absolute failure. The Democratic Party must finally understand which side it is on.
Right now, Sanders is driving a big wedge between the progressive left and the moderate left with his Medicare4All health care bill.
I don't know if you know, Chuck, but an overwhelming majority of Democrats are for Medicare4All. When he said he's driving a wedge, you mean he's advancing the policies that the overwhelming majority of Democrats have agreed that they're all for? You mean that kind of a wedge?
Yeah, guess what? I have a news flash. If you don't support Medicare for All, if you don't support single-payer health care, you are not center-left on any spectrum. You're center-right at best.
At best.
And I think we learned that a moderate left is Republican.
Well, Barack Obama admitted it.
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama, so look at the video I did. Barack Obama admits that his policies would be considered moderate Republican. He says they're so mainstream, they'd be considered moderate Republican, which means that the Democratic leadership thinks the mainstream of America is moderate Republican, which it's not. Every time they do a poll on how people feel about the issues, 22 out of 23 issues come up liberal. That Americans are more to the left than they are to the right, except the money in America is, of course, to the right. So they buy the news media, they buy the politicians, and they say, no, we're mainstream and moderate Republican. No. So Chuck Todd is doing his job as a tool of the establishment, and he's forwarding the plutocrats' talking points that somebody who's for Medicare4All, which is overwhelmingly desired by Democrats and the country right now. The majority of the people are for it. He says it's divisive. He's driving a wedge. He's driving a wedge between the minority of the party who are trying to destroy it and the majority of the party who wants to advance progressive policies. That's the wedge. I'll take that wedge, Chuck. So he's trying to make it look like Bernie Sanders. Well, let's listen to the rest.
What some of you are thinking, fake news, Republicans are united, or fake news, Democrats are united. But folks, you can't.
No, Chuck. Fake news is when you're so concerned with maintaining the status quo that you compare a white supremacist with a guy fighting for Medicare4All and you don't bat a fucking eye. That's fake news, Chuck. And you're doing it right on your goddamn NBC oil industry supported and military industrial complex funded news show.
Comcast owned.
Pro TPP. You know, you're in the minority. You're the wedge divider. Chuck Todd and your fucking bullshit news show, which takes money from the people you're supposed to be investigating. Chuck Todd will tell you that it's fake news. No. You're fake news, Chuck. You are. This is horseshit of the highest order. Comparing the most popular politician's position that is supported by the overwhelming majority of not only Democrats, but the goddamn country, and you're saying he's not moderate because he doesn't do the bidding of your corporate bosses. Because that's the way Chuck Todd's mind thinks. Because he's in a bubble, because he gets paid millions of dollars by the people he's supposed to be uncovering. This is what's wrong with America, because that's how we get Donald Trump. Guys like this misinforming their own fucking viewers. People turn on NBC News to get informed, and Chuck Todd completely misinforms them. This is beyond misinforming. This is lying. He knows it's not true. He knows Bernie Sanders isn't divisive, that Bernie Sanders is the representative of the overwhelming majority of people in the Democratic Party. Do you know that there's only 8% of the Democratic Party, registered Democrats, who aren't crazy about Bernie Sanders? 8%. The rest of the Democrats on board with Bernie. You know who's the most popular politician in the country? Bernie Sanders. You know who's not? Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. It's the opposite. But Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are moderate. They're so moderate, fucking everyone hates them.
Well, you know the other thing that's huge bullshit about this segment, like other than the gross false equivalency being the biggest thing, the second biggest thing is this little assumption throughout the whole thing that moderation is always best.
Yes.
Beware, the moderates are hurting. Beware, and that of course is always the way to righteousness. That's always. I mean, don't you remember when the weekend got rolled out by FDR? He said, "Look, eventually we're going to have a weekend. It's going to start with an hour and a half on Saturday mornings. Then you go back to work, and by like 1994, we're going to have Saturday and Sunday off. You guys on board? That's how it worked. No, it didn't work that way.
Yeah. He has a little bit more to say.
I know what some of you are thinking, fake news, Republicans are united, or fake news, Democrats are united. But folks, you can't see that this is a problem, is impacting both sides. If you don't see it, then you're probably part of that said problem.
He's saying Bernie Sanders' push for Medicare for All is a problem. Just like Steve Bannon's white supremacy is a problem. He's equating those two literally on his news show. And you can tell the guy didn't graduate college, right? Can you tell now? Can you tell now he has absolutely zero insight? He doesn't have the ability to break down a news story and give it to you? He has nothing. The only thing Chuck Todd can do is grow a goatee when he loses more hair on the top of his head. That's the only thing he's good at doing. What the fuck is you? This guy is useless.
And then he gaslights you.
Let me say, if you don't see that that's a problem, that Bernie Sanders pushing for Medicare for All is a problem, then you're part of the problem. So what he's saying is that if you don't see that both parties are corrupt, let me say this, Chuck, if you don't see that both parties are completely corrupt, then you're the fucking problem, Chuck. So what Chuck Todd is telling us that if we don't get behind bad ideas, like the corporate Democrats, or even worse ideas, like the Republicans, that you're the problem. That's literally what he's saying. If you don't get behind bad ideas or worse ideas, you're the problem. This is the fucking leading newsman in America. What a dunce. On purpose. By the way, it's on purpose. This is Chuck Todd being paid millions of dollars to tell people that a guy who wants Medicare for All is somehow crazy and divisive. And he's just as bad as a white supremacist. That's what Chuck Todd's doing right there. And he knows that guys like me are going to do this story, calling him out for it, so he tries to insulate him. Oh, I said they would do it. You mean that we would correctly call you out for your bullshit? Yeah, we're going to correctly call you out for your bullshit because Rachel Maddow's not going to do it, and none of the dumb motherfuckers who think Rachel Maddow's telling them the truth are going to ever see through you. And that's half the Democratic Party. It's actually not. It's actually just the vocal 20%. Who still cling to Hillary Clinton. They think in order to oppose Donald Trump, you have to somehow prop up Hillary Clinton. You don't. You can tell that they're both fucking cretins. So, go ahead, Ron. Did you want to say anything?
Well, no, I was just going to basically say, like that was gaslighting what he did. Like, well, if you don't understand, basically what he said at the end there was, if you're not on board with maintaining the status quo and that being your first priority, you're part of the problem.
Yep.
Like, no, the status quo is the problem, dude. That's the problem.
Ron, I think you just need to get on board and be a moderate.
There's nothing moderate about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer not wanting to give Medicare for all, free college, and the wars. There's nothing moderate about being pro-fracking. There's nothing moderate about giving another $700 billion to Trump and the Pentagon while still half the country is poor or low income. There's nothing moderate about that. Right now, our ruling elite are radicals. Radicals. You know what's moderate? What's moderate is, hey, when people get sick in the richest country in the world, maybe they should be able to get health care like the rest of the world without going bankrupt. That's moderate. You know what's moderate? Maybe because all our manufacturing jobs have been shipped to poor people in more desperate countries, maybe we have free college now. We extend our free high school to free college so people, that's like the rest of the world. That's moderate. You know who's radical? The people who'd rather spend that money on bombs. That's radical. Chuck Todd is a radical. Chuck Todd is against the status quo. I mean, no, he's for the status quo against what the majority of Americans want. He's on board with the oligarchs. He's a representative of the oligarch. And do you need any better proof? Do you need a better representative of how horrible Chuck Todd and NBC News is? This is what happens daily on NBC, and there's nothing worse in the world that I could show you. Steph, Ron? Anything? Are we done with this?
Well, Jimmy, unfortunately, when you were making your points, you weren't waving a pen like Chuck Todd was. I don't know.
And let me tell you, Chuck, you want to know how radical you are and how unradical Bernie Sanders is? Here's Bernie Sanders in a room full of Trump voters in West Virginia asking them if they think we should have Medicare for all like the rest of the world. Let's see how they respond. I bet they're going to boo him because he's so divisive. He's talking to Republican Trump voters. Let's see what happens.
What do you think? Do you think we should join other countries and guarantee health care as a right of all?
Yeah, I think every American citizen should have health care. Some way or some shape.
That's actually a popular idea in most of the country, Chuck. But you wouldn't know it because you hang out with millionaires and billionaires all day long. And the only time you talk to a regular person is when they're putting makeup on you or shining your fucking shoes or serving you dinner. That's why, Chuck. So there you go. That's really a radical. He's far left. He's far left, except the whole country agrees with him. He's so far left. Do you need any bigger example of how Chuck Todd is a corporate tool from fucking start to finish? And everybody at NBC is that. By the way, don't kid yourself. Chris Hayes will never say anything that costs Comcast money because it'll cost him his job. And he's got rent. He's got a Manhattan fucking Sky apartment to pay for, baby. None of them will say anything that costs. And when they do, they get fired. Ed Schultz, Phil Donahue, Cenk Uygur. So way to go, Chuck. Chuck, so anybody who does it, who's outside of the ruling class, which is the ruling class Republicans, ruling class Democrats, is wrong. If you don't, you got to be in the middle of anybody outside that. Anybody to the left of Nancy Pelosi or to the right of Mitch McConnell, they're somehow crazy. You know, the people to the right of Mitch McConnell want to end the wars. Did you know that? Yes. The people to the right of Mitch McConnell want to end the bank bailouts. Did you know that? But they're crazy, according to Chuck Todd. They're part of, and if you don't see that that's part of the problem, wanting to end wars, wanting to end bank bailouts, and wanting to give Medicare for all the people, then you're somehow a problem in America. Chuck Todd, our leading newsman, will tell you. Now, he knows Chris Hayes. He works at MSNBC, just like Chuck Todd. He was at this. Why didn't he just call Chris? Hey, Chris, what does most of the country think about Medicare for all again? Chuck Todd knows those statistics. He knows Chris Hayes talked to these people. Chuck Todd knows that most of America is for single payer, especially an overwhelming amount of Democrats. He doesn't give a fuck. He's going to lie right to your face for money. That's who Chuck Todd is. That's who all these people are. They will lie right to your face for money. And you wonder why people get their news from YouTube. Portland, Oregon, the Jimmy Dore Show is coming to the Alberta Rose Theater November 12th. And we're going to Burbank, California, November 6th. And the Hollywood Improv on October 16th. There's a link for tickets right down there. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for all links for all shows.